Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to a brand new edition of On to the Next One. Yes, we are live on the MMA Fighting YouTube channel following a memorable UFC 298 event, which went down last night in Anaheim, California. We have a brand new featherweight champion. His name is Ilia Topuria. We will discuss the fallout of that event from a matchmaking perspective, where Topuria goes from his big win, where Alexander Volkanovski goes after losing the featherweight title, where a lot of the main card winners go, and more. Plus, we'll get your suggestions as well. I am Mike Heck, and joining me as always on this matchmaking adventure, the co-host, the co-matchmaker, the prince of positivity, and the best friend of On to the Next One, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. Hey, K, how are we doing on this Sunday morning?
My best friend, we got some storylines, man. We got some storylines coming out of Saturday. I think some pretty clear narratives shaped. Yeah, they were during fight week. They were in the lead up to the fight. I think we were all highly anticipating the top four fights of UFC 298 for sure. And I think we thought we'd get some answers about, the respective divisions involved, the respective personalities involved. And we definitely got some answers. We got some questions too, some of which we'll answer on this show. Certainly the ones involving matchmaking. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this card. Oh, overall, top to bottom, whatever. That probably won't be remembered as one of the best three events this year, one of the best five events of this year. And that's okay. But we'll be talking about, I think, the results from the top four fights for some time. I think we will be discussing the results and what direction the winners went in. In December of this year. I think we'll still be talking about it. Very intriguing stuff, and ended on a hell of an exclamation point.
Yeah, undeniably the card of the year so far, but the bar wasn't very high, if we're being honest. We have a surefire knockout of the year contender in the main event. That will definitely be in the top five, and honestly, I think if we talked about this in the post-fight show, if that is not the knockout of the year from Ilia Topuria, then this is a crazy-ass year. An absolutely crazy ass year. So we will discuss the fallout from a matchmaking perspective for a lot of the tastemakers of this card. If you guys have thoughts on the fights and or the fighters we're talking about, you can leave them in the comments section. We'll pull them up on the screen, all of that fun stuff. We'll go through all of this. We'll go through the wild card selection where AK and I will matchmake for somebody that was either not a main card winner or somebody else. And at the very end, we'll take about 10, 15 minutes. We'll open up to you guys to make your suggestions. Throw them in the chat. We'll pull them up. There's going to be a lot of these. And if you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to wait in line, I really, truly want my matchmaking selections to be discussed on the show, we have the super chat feature. You could skip the line. The proverbial velvet rope gets opened up and you walk by the big line, angering those in front of you. But that's just the beauty of the super chat feature. But before we get into the matchmaking, AK, I think the biggest question that needed to be answered when it comes to the UFC and their 2024 calendar year, we got our answer to last night in just a weird moment, because Ilia Topuria becomes the featherweight champion of the world, has this incredible moment. They're about to strap the rockets to him. It's his time, his shining moment. And then moments later, UFC CEO Dana White goes to social media and announces the main event for UFC 300. It is not Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. It is not Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. It is not Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev. It is not Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. It is Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill for the UFC light heavyweight title. Love the fight. If I had to make a list at the end of last year heading into this year of three fights I have to see in 2024, Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill makes that top three list. But was this the UFC 300 main event? And I didn't really think that would be the case for a couple of reasons. One, something that was announced before UFC 298 last night, UFC going back to Brazil less than a month after UFC 300 would have been a damn good fight to headline that card in Rio, UFC 301. And Jamal Hill coming off of a nasty Achilles injury. I thought it just seemed like April is going to be too soon for that to happen. But on the flip side, of all the options we thought about that were going to be announced for this spot, you could even throw in just promoting Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway to the main event, which was a big talking point during the fan Q&A on Friday. Pereira versus Hill wasn't even really on anybody's radar, especially this week. But that's the fight we're getting. your reaction to the official UFC 300 main event, at least as it stands right this moment on this February 18th, 2024.
Yeah, amazing fight, a must-see fight. It's one that's been like in our minds. I think it's been in the works for a while. Feels like a bit of a quick turnaround for Jamal. Jamal tore his Achilles right in July, so summer of last year. And when it comes to those kinds of injuries, it usually takes a bit longer to fully recover. Now, he's a good athlete, so these guys are athletic freaks. They're getting the best treatment. Maybe he heals faster than expected. Maybe he comes in like less than 100%, but is functional and can fight. And in that case, then more power to the UFC for throwing this one together. I suppose I think it's a more than worthy main event. It's not. When they first envisioned what would headline UFC 300, when fans envisioned what would headline UFC 300, yeah, this probably wasn't at the top of the list. We had dreams of McGregor, Ronda Rousey comeback. Again, maybe Shemaya fighting someone, maybe Izzy coming back to fight someone. We had all these ideas, and it's crazy because I'm a little disappointed in ourselves, the MMA fighting crew, because we did not, like you said, somehow this wasn't on our radar for this event. Like this was certainly something we had match made for future events many times, but we've done several round tables, we've done several podcasts. Mike, you've done heck of a morning. People asking you about UFC 300 every friggin' day, and we've had all these think pieces about what could headline. What the card order is going to be. And I don't think any of us picked Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira in any of these articles that we wrote. We've done several articles, podcasts. I don't think we did. So again, good on the UFC for pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Jamal, I believe, speaking to Aaron Bronstetter of Sportsnet after, he says it literally came together on Friday. He says, it's something he's wanted. If you follow his social media, of course, he's targeted a fight with Pereira for a long time. But he says it was not realistically in the cards until Friday. He's in California, of course. He was there to watch the show, and Dana White comes to him and says, "Yeah, let's make this happen." So, I think it's a great main event. I think it's again, it's what the card needs now, because it's a stacked card, guys. It's a stacked card. I see a lot of people disappointed, like, oh, it just doesn't have the name power we wanted, and it doesn't have like the title fight I was hoping for. But even before this fight was added, it was a stacked card. I think Pereira is a star. Certainly a B-level star, not on the level of, maybe like a John Jones or that Izzy Adesanya, but he got some of the rub off Izzy. So he's a strong A side. We'll see how Jamal Hill does as a top flight guy. Again, he won the title, and then everything's been kind of screwed for him since then. He certainly has the disposition that might need a bit of work. He's an emotional guy, but hey, some people like that. So. I think the main event is fine. I understand people being disappointed, but as far as adding to what they already had for UFC 300, it's really good. It's strong. This is a strong, really, really good card. One that I think could be one of the best of the year.
Yeah, and that's why it was so important that I kept trying to tell everybody from the beginning of this, even when like BC was on BTL, we need to manage our expectations. And I think a lot of the newer fans learned something through this whole process, that if Dana White says something, it doesn't automatically happen. When he says, we're going to do something that is going to, you guys aren't ready for this main event, your socks are going to be blown off. And to kind of paraphrase what Jed Meshew said on BTL after this announcement, I was fully clothed after this announcement, and it was fine. Like, it was totally fine. Nothing fell off my body in terms of clothing. Like, I was bundled up, walking back to the hotel in freezing ass cold New York. It's a fine fight. Like, it's a fine fight. And someone had put this out earlier. Leon Bilal, from a stylistic perspective, is not 300-y. It just isn't. And I just don't think this fight's going to stink, so that regardless of how you feel about the on-paper stuff and the drawing power and all of that, I just don't see a world where this fight sucks. I think this fight's going to be really good. I think it's really interesting. Pereira could defend the freaking title. Like, he didn't defend successfully the middleweight title, but then he moves up to 205, becomes a 2-division champion, and then starts defending the belt there. And I have a million questions about Jamal Hill, a million of them. And I want to see if he's that good, because I think he could be, but beating Glover Teixeira, who was a former champion, but also had a foot out the door, and doing so in a short notice moment like that, and then getting hurt before we get all those answers. This is a big big moment for Jamal Hill. Let's see if he's the real deal, because he hasn't been very thrilled with how we have ranked him since winning the belt.
He hasn't been thrilled with anything, Mike. He's not a happy man. Well, he says he is. He keeps shouting that he is. So I guess he is. I guess the more you say I'm a happy person, then people have to believe you. But he's an angry young man. He's an angry young man.
I don't mind it. It's fine. I wasn't really prepared for it because from all accounts, and I talked about this in Heck of a Morning, it seemed, at least from the conversations I had, this was the fight that was going to more than likely headline Rio at 301. So I think the timing's kind of weird. Like if they didn't announce hours earlier that they were going to Rio 3 weeks later, I think this would have landed a little bit differently, but still, I think it's a great fight. The card is ridiculous. There's still one more fight to be announced. And I hope the speculation isn't as rampant for the non-main event fight as it was for the main event fight. But I'm so glad we have an answer to the question. We can move on with our lives. And for that, I feel 1,000,000 pounds lighter.
Yeah, I found it a bit strange, the backlash, people saying like, well, I'm not going to order the card now. And it's like, I would have ordered the card as is. Like, it's a great card. Now you're not getting that next level of sort of more casual fan. I get it. Like, again, if you have a McGregor, if you have a, excuse me, even like Izzy, like let's go like a little bit lower level star. Let's say you have Izzy and DDP. Let's say they managed to squeeze that on there. That's when you're getting probably in that upper tier, close to 1 million pay-per-view buys range. I still think this can do really well. Again, it won't come close to that now. Again, it just doesn't have that big casual appeal to it. Maybe if they can make people more aware of the BMF title fight, it has some appeal for sure to pretty well-known guys. But if this is going to do what, well over 500,000, 650,000, maybe
it's still going to do.
Yeah.
I think it's still going to do a mil.
I will say I have I don't know. See, that I'm not sure. Also because I don't know how the new we don't get reliable pay-per-view numbers anymore, right? So I don't know how they tabulate these. I don't know what the last one was to do 1 million. If the last one that they touted is doing 1 million, because again, we really have no hard data on that anymore. But it's not going to break records, and that's fine. The event sells itself. The fights that are on it already sell itself. And as you've kind of said many times, Mike, people got a bit hung up on the anniversary thing. They got hung up on Dana White's proclamations. But this is one instance where I'll defend Dana because he was actually promoting. He's promoting. Now, he was promoting something that he didn't deliver. Sure, and that sucks. And if people want to hate him for that and hate the UFC for that, more than fair. If a promoter says they're going to do something and they don't deliver, you have every right to be annoyed and bothered. But I would rather that than him not even attempting to sell this card. It is his job to sell cards. So mileage may vary on how it all turned out, but did a pretty good job selling it. Mike, like you said, could still make 1 million. I think it'll be under. But again, these days, if they make 800,000, even close to 800,000, that's a huge hit. And you're not paying anyone like McGregor money. This event is going to make ridiculous cash hand over fist. So UFC is doing just fine.
Yeah. And I think you kind of nailed it, because a lot of the talk heading into 298 is the media, the scumbag media in particular, we were the ones that put 298 over. We were the ones that were hyping this main event up. We were the ones that were hyping up this main card, because all of their attention, for the most part, it seemed, was on 299 and mostly 300, because just the mere conversation of when are we going to announce the 300 main event stole all the headlines from this event altogether. So it was up to us to really put this fight card over as good as it was going to be. The matchups, what they were, how good Volkanovski versus Topuria was. Having said that, 300 is going to be a whole different beast for Dana White. I feel like he's kind of checked out of the UFC stuff a little bit. And that's fine. Like, when you win the race, it's easy to do that and go on to other challenges. See what he's doing with Power Slap, some of the other ventures he's dove into, and good on him. I'm not blaming him for that. But he's going to go full bore promotional wise for 300. Like, this is when we're going to see Dana put forth his best effort to get this out there to everybody. So I do think the effort will be there. I do think by the time we get to 300, it is going to be freaking crazy. I think the build's going to be wild. And by the time we get to April 13th, it's going to, everyone's going to be talking about it. So it's going to be fine, guys. I promise you. This card is going to be really good. It's going to be really good.
Mike, as good as a job as we did, by the way, of putting over UFC 298, I feel like you're not giving enough credit to the hilarious antics of Henry Cejudo and Oban Elliott. Those pranks, those hilarious pranks they pulled, really, I think, helped to draw people in. We'll get. You know what? We'll get to Cejudo later. And Oban Elliott, I'll tell you something. That nonsense, you're not. That's not my wildcard pick, Mike. He ain't gonna be my wildcard pick, and that's one reason why.
Boy, people were just eliminating themselves from the wild card selections.
Yeah,
last
it's real
night.
easy.
We'll get
It's
into
real
that.
easy.
There's some awful call outs. I mean, just some real bad ones. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's get into the post-mortem of UFC 298 from a matchmaking perspective. As we talked about, as everybody here knows, Ilia Topuria, the brand new featherweight champion of the world. Fight was super interesting. It was an edge of your seat kind of stuff because Volk looked really good and Topuria looked really good. And it was a roller coaster ride where Volk would come out getting some momentum. Topuria would get a little aggressive, steal some back. Volk would take it back. All three judges scored round one for Volk. I did as well. Round two, Volk looks good. Topuria has a moment. Volk starts to pull away a little bit. And Topuria then knocks him out dead. One of the most brutal knockouts you will ever see. Volk said it in the lead-in. Volk said it after the fight. You cannot make a mistake when you're in there with a hitter like Ilia Topuria, who is a freaking sniper. And boy, did he deliver. Ilia Topuria backs up the trash talk, gets it done, rose petals everywhere, photos with ladies. Everything just was ready to go, prepared, and Ilia Topuria went in there in Anaheim and did the damn thing and is the featherweight champion of the world. A lot of ways we can go with this, AK. Ilia Topuria is about to become a superstar. I think they're going to Spain. They're probably going to get there this year now. Is it Volk getting the rematch? Are we going a different direction? There's a lot of ways we can go here.
In a fair and just world, Volk getting the rematch probably would be the UFC's top priority. Also, given the history of people who have gotten rematches. But I've said on previous shows that I wish they would kind of throw out their rematch policy because I understand. I think if you defend the title 3 times at least, especially in this era, like 3 times is a lot. It's a lot any era, but in this era, I mean, no one does 7, 8, 9 straight title defense anymore, except for maybe like what Valentina did. I can't remember 6, and or if you count Nunes, her 2, across her 2 titles, definitely defended, more than 5, 6 times. And that's why, Amanda's got an immediate rematch and Valentina's getting an immediate rematch with Grasso. So I'm okay with that. And by that logic, how can you not give Volkanovski an immediate rematch? Extremely tough division, great champion. But the circumstances are so weird because he's like now technically lost 3 of his last 4 fights. He's been brutally knocked out in 2 of them. It feels like Ilia has a lot of options. This isn't a situation where it's like, well, there's no one else, ready to step up. We have a lot of good featherweights or featherweights that are about to fight that could take that spot. So this was, again, if they give Volkanovski the rematch, no problem. Makes a ton of sense. I would hope there's some time between this fight and that. But that's another reason why I'm going with, I think Topuria would want to turn around within the next 4 months, 4 or 5 months. And I don't want to see Volkanovski fight that soon. So I'm going with a pick I set up when Movsar Evloev, when he beat Arnold Allen at 297. I said he should get the winner of this fight. And Mike, I'm sticking to it. Give me the undefeated Movsar versus the undefeated Ilia Topuria. Banger of a fight.
So I am foregoing any ought-no points here because to me this is incomplete. I cannot make a selection right now.
Oh,
I truly cannot make a selection until a week from today because here's how I would do it. And if you want to throw Volk into a rematch, I have no problem with it. If there's anybody on this freaking roster who deserves a rematch for the title, it's Alexander Volkanovski. He was by far the longest reigning champion until last night. Now Leon Edwards is the longest reigning champion in the UFC, which is crazy to think about. Volk just ran roughshod for almost 5 years in this division after beating Max Holloway. And he was looking good. He was winning the fight until he got knocked out. So it's not like Ilia 13-seconded him or 50-41'd him. He just caught him with a big shot and beat him. And the fight was looking like I thought it was going to look for a while. But Topuria goes in there and gets the damn thing and starches Volkanovski. So here's what I would do. If Yair Rodriguez goes out there and finishes Brian Ortega next week, I think that's the fight you do in Spain. You do Topuria versus Yair, Spain versus Mexico. The build to that will be wild. The fans will go friggin' bananas for it. Totally fine with that. If Brian Ortega wins that fight, you give me Movsar Evloev. You could do it in Spain. You could do it sooner. Co-main event to something fun. If like even International Fight Week. If you want to do International Fight Week, Topuria wants to get back in there. throw in a good solid main event for International Fight Week. If you end up doing like Conor versus whoever, get Ilia and Conor on the same card. Like, you think Ilia's going to be mad getting his first title defense on a freaking Conor card as a champion, getting pay-per-view points there? I don't think he's going to be too upset about that. And then you throw Valiev in there. It's pretty cool. So that's how I do it. If Yair wins, that's the route I'm going. In Spain, whenever you can make that happen, you shelve Ilia. If you can get there in like September, perfect. That's where you do the fight. If not, do Topuria versus Evloev. You can do it in Spain or do wherever. But yeah, I'm very excited for this era. And now for the Volkanovski side of this, AK, because for me, the true answer to this is the most fascinating matchup for Volkanovski is Alexander Volkanovski versus Alexander Volkanovski. Ooh. That's the most fascinating fight right now, because I want to see him take some time off. I want to see if he can have the wherewithal, even at his age right now, where the door it starts to close for everybody. No matter how good and how talented you are, that door starts to close for everybody. And it's starting to close for Alexander Volkanovski, and I think he knows that. So the time to strike and make those big paychecks is now. But he's been brutally KO'd in 2 straight fights. This was way worse than the Makhachev knockout, in my opinion, because he just got badly KO'd with a punch. He was out and down for a long time. But for me, still kind of incomplete. But when Volkanovski is ready to fight again, he is going to fight for the belt. Whether it's still Ilia or if Ilia fights somebody else and loses, Volkanovski will get a title shot against whoever that is, whenever that is, whether it's the end of this year, early next year. I just think I'm throwing this out there because I want to see Volk take some time off. I don't know if he's going to, and I don't think I'm confident that he's going to, because I think they are going to run this one back, and I think we're going to be like, ugh, this is too soon. I wish this wouldn't be the case. But I'm putting out this juju that maybe Volk does take some time, takes like 9-10 months, maybe a year away, and then comes back fresh, new perspective, coming off the 2 losses, give it one more go and see what happens. But so that's where I'm going. Volk versus himself. Volk gets a title fight, but just whenever he's ready to come back, and I hope it's not anytime soon.
A little Kimbo Slice there. The enemy was the inner me all along. I think Volkanovski maybe finding that out the hard way over the past 14 months or so. Yeah, it's not tough to watch because, like you said, he was winning the first round. For anyone who didn't see the official scorecards, it was 10-9 Volk across the board. So he was up. Again, not that means nothing now with the final result, and he was knocked out cold. But yeah, he looked fine. And I worry that he might be entering the stage of his career like we're seeing with Tony. Not to say that he's going to suffer that precipitous a decline, but that he's winning a fight until he isn't. Which is kind of explains my pick for him, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, he needs to take time off. It's hard, man. He just took 4 insanely high level fights in whatever the last 14 months. I said, you're gonna get got. He got twice real bad. I don't think that could have happened against Yair, but if it happened, it wouldn't surprise me just because the schedule this guy keeps is so difficult. The skills are still there, but age does matter, especially the lower you get in weight. Lightweight, featherweight, bantamweight. The people get faster, they get younger. They get stronger. That's not the only reason Topuria beat him. Topuria is an incredibly skilled fighter. If you put him against a prime Volkanovski, I'd still give Topuria a really strong chance of winning that fight. But against this version, it's understandable why he was such a sneak. He was the underdog, I think, right, Mike? Slight.
Who was Ilia?
Ilia.
Slight, yeah. Volk was, I think he closed at -130.
Yeah, so you can understand. Yeah, so, but. Listen, he showed out, and Volkanovski clearly doesn't want to retire. He called for the rematch several times, post-fight press conference interview. All he wanted to do was talk about the rematch, which is fine. He deserves it. It sucks that we're even discussing this because he should get it. But like I said, I'm going Evloev for Topuria. And for Volkanovski, kind of a low wattage fight, Mike. It kind of goes against what we're saying here, where he should be going for like big money fights in this stage of his career. But if you're him and you really think you have an honest crack at getting back up to a title somewhere, whether it's at 145, 155, you should be fine with just fighting ranked guys, regardless of name. So I went with Josh Emmett. And I was kind of inspired by the co-main because it reminds me, that matchup for me would be a little bit like Whittaker and Paulo Costa, in that like we know one fighter we feel like pretty confident on paper is more skilled. We know Volkanovski is the quote-unquote better fighter, whatever that means when 2 guys step into a cage and start throwing hammers. But for 15 minutes, we would be thinking, man, all Emmett needs is one good shot to put Volkanovski down. So Josh Emmett, of course, would jump at this opportunity. Volk, I don't know if he would care. But I am fascinated because he should win a comfortable decision against Josh Emmett or finish him. If he gets KO'd by Josh Emmett, then we have a really good idea of how close Volkanovski actually is to either retiring or making a move up in weight, which really would not solve his problems if that's the case, if he did get KO'd in that situation. So not a super sexy pick, but I have a feeling that Josh Emmett fight could happen. If I'm Josh Emmett's team, I'm putting out feelers in like a couple of months to see where Volkanovski's at.
I'll tell you what, the only fight I would want to see Volk come back for is if Aljamain Sterling beats Calvin Kattar. We do Sterling versus Volk. I'd be all right with that because Sterling could win, but he's not gonna badly hurt Volk with strikes. Like if he wins, he's gonna win a decision or he submits Volk, which would be very difficult to do. But I'd be okay with that. But still, I would still rather him take some time off. And I know for Ilia Topuria, if I had my druthers, I would. But then you have to take away my dream fight because Ilia versus Max friggin' rules. But I just feel like that fight is impossible now. I just feel like it's impossible because either Max is going to beat Justin Gaethje and probably fight for the lightweight title, or Justin Gaethje's gonna thump up Max in a bad way, and it's gonna be real hard to justify throwing Max in a title fight, like if he gets thumped up by Justin Gaethje. Like especially if Gaethje like cracks him and drops him and really hurts him, then it kind of loses some appeal. So I mean, we just booked so many weird things that in hindsight probably weren't the right things, but I still love Gaethje Holloway so much. It's the one I've been calling for 3 years on this show. And now we're finally going to get it. But now Ilya's the champion. Ilia versus Max would be great. But we'll see what happens. So let's continue on here, okay? Robert Whittaker comes through after getting knocked out by the current champion, Dricus du Plessis, welcomed back the man, the creator of the secret juice, Paulo Costa. Fun-ass fight. Paulo Costa is officially not human because he got hit real hard, an awful lot in that fight. And he had like the Marlon Vera stuff going on where like he was barely marked up, but he took a lot of damage, didn't wear it. Rob looks like he got hit in the face with a baseball bat about 15 times with his hands tied behind his back. It was just wild, but Rob gets it done. Gets the unanimous decision. Thought it was pretty clear. He won at least 29-28. I scored at 30-27, but I don't hate 29-28 is probably the better score. Maybe just because I had a point spread bet on Robert Whittaker and I kind of needed that 30-27 to get me over the hump. What are we doing with Robert Whittaker here? He's already fought the champion, got knocked out. If we do DDP versus Izzy, he's already lost to Izzy twice. Where do we go here with the Reaper?
This was by far for me the hardest pick. I think Chimaev's an Ozzy's pick, but I had match made for Chimaev in a previous show. I think I still want to see him and Strickland fight. And if I had to choose between Chimaev Strickland or Chimaev Whittaker, I would stand by Chimaev Strickland. I just think that's a funny matchup and would like to see it happen. So for me, in my mind, Chimaev is not free. Obviously, he's not booked. If he wanted to fight Whittaker tomorrow, the UFC could make that happen. But in my mind, he's booked. So I had to go in another direction. And doing so sent me on a real trip, man, because Rob has beaten so many of these guys in the top 10 already. There's guys who are on the fringe of the top 10 who just aren't quite near that fight or coming off a loss and don't make sense. Jack Hermanson would have been a good pick, but again, I've match made for him already. So I have to get a bit weird here, Mike, and I've got to get real crystal ball-y. I think this fight would be a ton of fun, and I'm predicting that this guy will call for it after he wins his next fight. Demolidor, Michel Pereira. If you are out there, after you knock out Michael Oleksiejczuk at UFC 299 on March 9th, call for this fight. I think you can get this fight. Again, rankings-wise, he's not close to me. I think I have Michel around the top 20, not in the top 10, not in the top 15. He'll have won 7 straight fights if he beats Michael Oleksiejczuk. That's a heck of a run. And that's a lot of steam that Robert Whittaker could take if he chose to accept that matchup. So I'm having to make 2 predictions here. 1, that Pereira wins. 2, that he calls out Whittaker. 3 predictions. 3, that he calls out Whittaker. And 3, that Whittaker accepts. So I'm going really a bit out there and hoping we see Michel Pereira and Robert Whittaker in 2024.
I actually thought about doing Michel Pereira versus Paulo Costa as my wild card. That would just be ridiculous. I didn't end up going that direction. This was tough because of Hamzat. Because you could do so many different things with him. Like, does he fight Leon? Does he fight DDP? Does he fight Strickland? Does he fight Paulo Costa? Because you could still do that, even though Paulo lost. Like, you think anyone's going to complain if they book Hamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa? Do you do Hamzat versus Robert Whittaker? Like, that's a great fight too. In the end, I agree with you. If I had to choose the next fight for Hamzat Chimaev, it is Sean Strickland. That is what I'm doing. That fight fascinates me. And I want to see it very, very badly. So, because I'm sticking with that, and that's the one I need to see, Robert Whittaker will now face a former long-reigning UFC world champion, a man who spent all of his career in the welterweight division until he took a short notice fight against the man we just spoke of, Hamzat Chimaev, lost a very close decision. We do Robert Whittaker versus Kamaru Usman next. That's what I think. That's what I'm going with.
It's been talked about. It's been talked about in the past. Past Otnos. It's not the first time we've heard about this. And very sellable fight. Very sellable fight. That's a strong co-main or a pay-per-view, I think. If they can't get if there's one in the future where they can't fit in 2 title fights, get Whittaker and Usman on there. Nice kind of like a legacy fight. There's a lot of ways to sell. And a fight that would have some contender implications, frankly. So, yeah, that's name value-wise, way better than Michel Pereira. So, there's options for Whittaker. Again, hardest guy I thought to match up after this win. And he looked great.
Yeah. You could do Whittaker Strickland too. Like, I'm totally fine with that. There's so many things you can do with the top of this division right now, with all of these names, that there's really no wrong answer to any of these.
No.
So however it works out, it's great. But man, Whittaker Usman's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I think both guys are like in the exact same places in their careers right now, where they're on the back 9, but they're not cooked yet. So there's still gas in the tank for both of those guys. And that would be a really intriguing matchup. So let's go to Ian Machado Garry, AK. Just kind of a weird stretch for Ian Machado Garry between all the hype he had heading into the Vicente Luque fight, whether it be good or bad. He kind of flew under the radar this week, like in a different kind of a way. But boy, he was getting booed left and right. Made some big promises for this whole Geoff Neal build. Yes, he goes out there and wins. Was it a fight we're going to go back and watch again? Probably not. And there's not a lot of Ian Garry fights we have seen ever that we're just going to be like, nah, not doing that one again. But this is one of them. I don't fully blame Ian Machado Garry for the fight being what it was, because 1, he's fighting Geoff Neal. 2, he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. I don't care who you are and how much swag you think you have. There's no way his head wasn't filled with bullshit all week with how people react to him. He's almost getting in fights with fans who are shouting at his wife when he arrives at the freaking arena. I mean, this guy left and right is just dealing with hurdles he needs to leap over. And even on a night that wasn't his best, he beats Geoff Neal. And that's a great win to have on the resume. I think despite the performance not being one we're going to go back and rewatch, I think it's one that's going to age very, very well. He calls out Colby. If he had like a sensational performance, the performance we kind of thought we could get from Ian Machado Garry, I think people will be all over this fight. I am still good with it, and I still am going with it. Garry versus Colby. And I honestly think, knowing Colby the way that I do, he watched that fight and said to himself, I could beat this guy. Like, I feel better about beating this guy than maybe I potentially thought a month ago. I think Colby watched that fight and said, this guy, I could win. And this is the right time to fight him. Because if you wait 1.5 years to fight Ian Garry, I don't think it's going to go very well for Colby. But right now, I think there's something there. The build to that fight's going to be super weird. And Ian's going to be tested mentally and physically like never before, getting ready to fight a guy like Colby Covington. So I'm good with it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you're really going to do something with Ian Garry, you got something here. And if you want to if you still think there's gas left in this Colby Covington train to build him up, maybe get him another title fight, getting him in there with Ian Garry, who you can make a debate right now, has X-Pac heat, Colby could come out looking like a freaking baby face, even after the Leon fight where people turn on him like crazy. Colby could become the freaking baby face, and there's no other guy in this division he would be a baby face against than Ian Machado Garry. So I'm still going with this. This is the fight I think the UFC will try to make, and I think Colby will be in on it.
Can we even cue up the band here, Mike? Was this too obvious a pick? No, we can't, right? He called for it.
There's really two choices. You either do Colby or you do Wonder Boy, and I'd rather see Colby.
I'm quite sorry. I went with Colby. This is definitely more of a magic wand thing because if you're Colby again, you still have some leverage. I know that he dropped an absolute stink bomb in his last fight, but there's a following there. He has a name. He still has the higher number. I think he's still ranked top 5 in the UFC's rankings. I don't know if he's in our rankings anymore. I'm trying to think. They may fight in global rankings. He might just be gone. I think we were that disappointed in his Leon Edwards fight. But again, to the UFC, that doesn't matter, right? They've got their own rankings. They've got their own panel. I think they still have an actual panel. Hard to tell. And he's in the top 5. And Ian Machado Garry won't be. He'll be top 10. He'll be top 10. Geoff Neal, I think, was 8 or 9 in their rankings, so he'll be 8 or 9. He'll be 8 or 9 come Tuesday, maybe 7. I don't think so. I don't think you bump him above some of the more experienced guys before him because I think he'd have to jump over Wonder Boy, and I don't think he's done enough to earn that. I see a lot of people in the chat calling for him to fight Wonder Boy. Makes a lot of sense for the future. Don't think Wonder Boy's taking that one next, unfortunately. That's the other call-out he could have done for sure. But Colby makes a lot of sense. Mike, both guys have to see this as a winnable fight. Colby has to think, I'm going to wrestle this dude's butt off, and I'm going to out-cardio him, 30-27. This guy, the level of competition we've faced it's not even close in comparison. If you're Colby, you think that. If you're Garry, you saw the Leon Edwards fight, you think this guy is washed. I'm going to 30-27 him on the feet. He won't touch me on the ground. If it goes to the ground, I don't care. I got better grappling, or so he would think. So both guys should theoretically on paper want it. If you're Colby, you do have a lot more to lose. It would be cool to, again, I said with Robert Whittaker, taking someone's steam. It would be cool to be the guy to hand the future his first loss and humble him in front of whatever crowd they happen to be in front of. But it's still a dangerous fight for Colby. I think Garry has a lot more to gain there. But it's logical. I'm waving my magic wand. Let's see this happen in UFC. Very easy fight to sell. Weird, yes. Inappropriate at times, for sure. We'll get some ugliness. We'll get some things I'm just going to hate having to transcribe. But it's a good fight to make. It is a good fight to make. This is an ugly business, and this is about as ugly as a matchup can get. And if you want to see Ian Machado Garry in the top 5 and fighting for a title either by the end of the year or heading into 2024, he beats Colby. We'll talk about giving him a shot off of that.
Yeah, if he beats Colby, he gets a number 1 contender fight.
Yeah.
And then gets title fight. So
8-0.
Yeah, I mean, he won. Again, it's always important to know that even if you're not on your best, if you go in there and you get your hand raised, it's a win. It's going to be green. And 2 years ago, when we look at it, we're going to be like, oh, yeah, he beat Geoff Neal. Like, that's a good win. Mm-hmm. We're not going to remember the fight. We're not going to go back and rewatch it. We're just going to know that he won. So I think you do it. If they do Wonder Boy, fine. Sean Brady would be interesting, but I don't think they're going to do that. So I just think you gotta just go with the name here. And I think Colby's the one. And I think Colby, looking at from a risk reward perspective, I think this is about as good as he possibly get for him right now.
Machado Garry is an interesting, Conor McGregor comparison. Of course, they're both from Ireland. Of course, they both talk a lot. He has mentioned the Conor McGregor comparisons. It's impossible to avoid. And there's some massive differences there. I mean, the one thing with O'Connor is his highlight reel going up to the top was amazing, right? His highlight reel was incredible. He would talk some crap. He would deliver big knockout. Sure, you could say it was against favorable matchups. Doesn't matter. He has this reel that we still watch this every time we see Conor McGregor highlights. We still see wins from before Mendez, from before Jose Aldo. Like it was knocking people out, and the talking trash is what helped get him to where he is today, get him to that level. And Machado Garry doesn't have those knockouts against high level competition. He's had some knockouts early on, but he is doing the most important thing, and it's just not losing. Like you said, Mike, if you're going to talk all that crap, you cannot lose. You cannot lose. Split decision doesn't matter. As long as it's that W, it's that extra paycheck, it's you able to say, I'm 14-0, 15-0, 16-0 down the road. That's what matters. Would it be nice if he was starching Geoff Neal and starching Neil Magny? Sure, great. Then we're really talking about a superstar. Then he's probably getting a title fight off this fight. But he's not there yet. So he's an imperfect McGregor comparison, but he's still trending in the direction, like we said, as a guy who could maybe 2 fights away from fighting for UFC gold, which is, hey, everything's according to plan for the way him and his management have laid it out.
I gotta tell you something, okay? We talked about like not queuing up the band. I almost like feel like we shouldn't queue up the band for this next one. But I gotta tell you, if you told me 2 weeks ago that I was gonna come on this program and say that no matter what happens at UFC 299, Merab Dvalishvili is fighting for the bantamweight title, and say that with full confidence, I would have laughed in your face. I would have laughed in your face, because just the fact that like Merab was viewed in such a Merabi way, but then somehow started getting some buzz with the social media stuff, doing just brilliant stuff. And then he is over like Rover in Anaheim, waving the Mexican flag proudly. This guy got like the biggest pop of anybody yesterday in that card. He goes out, gasses out Henry Cejudo, and just like had a good time. He's talking with friggin' Mark Zuckerberg while he's trying to lock it a gilly. He's picking dudes up and having conversations with people cage side as he's slamming Henry Cejudo to the mat. Unbelievable performance. And then Dana White goes to the post-fight press conference, and he did it. He said the words. I didn't think he would. Mr. I don't make fights the day of the fight. Says Merab Dvalishvili is fighting for the title next. I couldn't believe it. This turnaround for Merab Dvalishvili over the last 15 or so days is incredible. And if I'm Bilal Muhammad right now, I am doing a Zoom chat with Merab every day for the next 100 days to pick that man's brain and figure out how to get from one place to the other, because this is incredible. Merab is the dude. He's the best bantamweight in the world, in my opinion. I have Sean O'Malley ranked higher. I'm just throwing that out there. He is the champion. He's looked good. And if Marlon Vera wins, then I still think I'll have Merab number one. But I'm very confident that when Merab fights for the belt, he's going to win the belt. And he's going to fight for the belt next. If you do anything else, it is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it would be screwed up. Yeah, you're like you said, Mike. We can't really queue up the band here. This is the fight that has to be made. Merab is a star, man. He is a star in the making. Again, he might not be a John Jones level star. You know, he's not that A level, but UFC has a lot of potentially strong B level stars, and that's okay. If you're the UFC, that's all you need. Your brand, the UFC is the star. We've said this probably 5 million times. Anyone who's covered MMA has said this 5 million times, probably since the first day they got into the business. The UFC is the star, but you need, strong, at least B-level guys. If you get lucky and you get a Rousey, you get a Brock Lesnar, you get a Conor McGregor, that's a whole other thing. Then boom, you're getting a couple of years of insane prosperity. But you don't need them. You need guys like Merab who are personalities, who are memorable. His social media videos, I think, are so funny. I know some people might cringe at them. They're very sort of well-crafted skits that him and his team put together. I find them almost uniformly hilarious. Like, I think they're all really well done. They're short, they're punchy, they make sense. They don't take themselves too seriously. His videos that he's done in the past whatever year are 100 times funnier than anything Henry Cejudo has done in his career. So I could not have been more thrilled with Merab taking care of business. I don't want to turn this into a Cejudo slam session. Well, yes, I do. I shouldn't turn this into a Cejudo slam session. I am just so grateful that Dvalishvili has hopefully shut the door on Henry Cejudo's career. Cejudo's had an amazing, amazing fighting career. He's still, if you want to make the case, the greatest combat sports athlete, maybe of our generation, maybe of all time. Maybe if you want to just go down to American, you can go that far too. The greatest American combat sports athlete, Olympic gold medals, 2 UFC titles. I think if he'd stuck around, and this is like one of the nitpicks of his career, of course, if he had stuck around after the Cruz fight and logged a couple more defenses, I mean, unassailable. We're talking about Henry as a top 5, like pound for pound guy. That might be a little high, but he would certainly make the case for it. You would have a certain demographic of fans that would support it, and that's fine. You'd have a case. The guy is an unbelievable. He looked good in round 1. He still has the skills to fight. He's just reached the age where, again, at bantamweight, where it's really hard to go with someone for 5 rounds, especially a machine like Merab. So happy trails to Henry Cejudo. Enjoy your money, whatever money you've made in this crazy business. Enjoy your beautiful wife and child. I hope this is it for Henry. If he fights again, of course, more power to him. I have no interest in it, but hey, it's his life. He can do what he wants. But thank you, Merab, for winning this fight and maybe putting a pin in the Henry Cejudo saga for now. But yes, Merab, title shot. It's got to happen. It's got to happen, Mike.
If Sean O'Malley beats Cheeto and like stops him I'm super curious what he says. Is he going to call Merab? Is he going to call it Ilia? What's he going to do? I'm fascinated by it all. I do think he ends up fighting Merab, but if he cuts the right promo, could he sneak into that Ilia fight? I would hate every bit of it because I think at this point, everyone knows how I feel about this. Let's just stay in your division and try to fight dudes because Sean O'Malley's got a lot of them. And yes, I agree with you on the Henry Cejudo thing. Boy, if Henry Cejudo sticks around, he's probably going to have to fight Umar Nurmagomedov next. And yikes.
I can only hope.
Good.
Do you remember how many heck of a mornings, Mike? Do you remember before the Aljo fight? Do you remember before the comeback, before he actually came back, last year? Last year. How many people were asking you, like, do you think this is going to happen? Should he get a teleshot right away? And you were having to explain, I think you had no problem with him coming back, but like, why should he leapfrog all these people? And then he did, and I was so upset. And then he fought great against Aljo. Let's call it what it is. He fought really, really well against Aljamain Sterling, and just lost a splitty. But man, it has been a roller coaster with Henry over the last couple of years. And I wish the UFC just paid him what he was worth when he was with the company the first time. It sucks that he had to come back. I don't think just for money, but to compete and also to get the money he deserves, because I think he made the UFC a lot of money. But for now, the story's over. I don't want to see him fight Umar. I kind of my eyes lit up there for a second, but I think Umar just smashes Henry at this stage of their careers, and I think that's depressing. I think if you're a fan of Henry Cejudo, you should have no interest in that. So, let's make this. Mike, do you think Sean O'Malley is practicing his Spanish? Do you think he's going to do a call out in Spanish of Ilia and get that fight in Spain? Go to Spain and fight Ilia, because if you're Dana White, you would love to see Sean O'Malley versus Ilia Topuria headline Spain.
Sean's pretty smart, and I think if Brian Ortega wins, he's going to try to get that fight. I mean, that's a big one for he'd make. That's a big one. It's a big one, but I would rather see Sean fight Merab if he beats Cheeto. I would rather see Ilia fight somebody in his division, but we'll see how it all plays out. And to Henry's credit, he looked good in the first round against Merab.
He did.
He won.
He
won the round.
He has the skills. I guarantee if you go to Henry Cejudo's gym, he is wiping dudes out left and right in practice. Like, he is probably still one of the most skilled guys at 135. His pedigree is unassailable. He's been wrestling since he was a kid and is still one of the best in the world at it. But on fight night, athleticism and age and the cardio and all that stuff matters. And it sucks because, again, there are a lot of great fighters out there who are just above a certain age that can still do it, but actually finding that extra gear you need when the time comes is it's just human nature. There's a few freaks out there and go on forever. I wonder if Merab, when he reaches 35, 36, 37, will still have that second, third, fourth gear that he shows. Probably will, because he's a freak. But again, these lighter weight classes, they just get younger and better. And unfortunately for guys like Cejudo, Father Time undefeated.
Merab is just such a freak. Dude barely broke a sweat with that pace he put on. He had a 14.5-minute post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, arguably the longest post-fight interview in the history of the UFC. And Cejudo didn't get the chance to retire again, which I'm actually okay with. I actually was okay with Dana's reaction, because he was just like, look, man, he already did it. He's had his moment already. Yep. It's like, do you buy wedding presents for the same person if he marries 5 people? Do we get 5 toasters at this point? So I kind of get it at that point, but man, what a performance. Merab is the dude and been pretty fun to watch. Let's go to, look, I'll just throw out my Anthony Hernandez pick, because if you listen to last week's show, this is not a surprise. Jack Hermanson defeated Joe Pyfer. I said the winner of Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov should get the Jack Hermanson fight. Anthony Hernandez is just the dude. He is so fun to watch. This guy doesn't get tired. He's a friggin' gamer. And he kind of did to Roman Kopylov what Merab did to Henry Cejudo. And it was very, very impressive. Anthony Hernandez is really, really good. And he deserves the opportunity to fight an established name who is ranked in the top 10 in this division. And Jack Hermanson's perfect. This could be a main event at the Apex. This could be in front of a crowd. This could be on a pay-per-view main card. It's a good one. I'm okay with it, and I'm sticking with it. Fluffy gets his chance, fights Jack Hermanson next.
I wish I could do the same. That's a great pick. I think for Hermanson, I went with another upcoming fight. So he's off the board for me, but I could see that fight happening. The timing was just perfect. But I'll go with the Brendan Allen, Marvin Vettori loser. He could maybe get the winner. Anthony Hernandez could maybe get the winner, but I'll be conservative here, and I'll go loser. That fight's happening, I believe, the April 6th main event. So yeah, Fluffy versus one of them, and keep this middleweight division moving. Mike, so far you and Shaheen, I think top 4 division middleweight. It hasn't looked bad so far. It hasn't looked bad. We had a lot of middleweights on the past 2 Apex cards. I don't remember any of the fights being like terrible. I think maybe forgettable, but nothing terrible. And then both fights on 298 certainly delivered. We got an early fight of the year contender with Whittaker and Costa, amazing fight, and Hernandez and Kopylov was pretty exciting for as long as it lasted. And then we had a definitive winner, Anthony Hernandez taking care of business. Looked like that was a really fun matchup. So I'm not saying you guys are right yet, but middleweights looked pretty good in 2024 so far. Pretty good, and the picture is shaping up. You guys, that was a big thing for you guys, was how does the contender picture look? How much intrigue is there? It's shaping up nicely. So I'm not conceding defeat yet in this debate, but 298, good night for the middleweights.
Yes, great performance for Fluffy. 5 in a row. This guy's super fun to watch.
He's good.
All right, let's go to the wild card selection. Let us matchmake for somebody we have not matchmade for yet, and we'll do it right now, and then we'll head over to the peeps. So, AK, who's your wild card selection for UFC 298, and why is it Min Yang Zhang?
Mike, we normally save the disclaimers for the listeners, but I think we need disclaimer for fighters now. Let's get the word out. If you make an insane call out, you are, and we have gotten plenty so far this year. Denver Grimbo calling for a title shot. Someone else, that same card, I can't even remember, but people just calling for top 5 guys or top 1 guys with like a 3-1 UFC record or like on a 2-fight win streak. I have been such an advocate for insane call-outs. I always say, call your shot. You never know what you're going to get. Now I have been pushed the other way. Guys are getting way too wild with it. Shoot for the moon, you land in the stars. You're going to shoot. You guys are shooting for the moon. You're going to land in a friggin' dumpster the way you guys are making some of these call-outs. So you are banned from wildcard consideration. Zhang Minyang calling for Alex Pereira. I don't know what the hell that was. I was told it was a joke. He was saying it in jest. Certainly possible. May have lost something in translation. Maybe I completely misread that. Either way, didn't find it funny. So Zhang Minyang is going to have a lot of fun fights at light heavyweight. Really looking forward to what's next for Zhang. But no, I'm not wild card picking. You can't make a call like that. So I'll go with Rinya Nakamura. Undefeated so far in his career, 3-0 in the UFC now at bantamweight, but has shown that he still has work to do against more experienced guys. Carlos Vera, I thought brought in to just get bulldozed, but Carlos has had a lot of is an experienced guy, not as far as like he doesn't have like 20 fights or anything, but he's been competing in martial arts for a long time. And he looked like he lost clearly, but he put Rinya in some uncomfortable moments. So let's just keep testing Rinya with guys with similar amount of fights. I'm going nothing fancy here, Mike. Garrett Armfield, another good fighter. Let's see where he is at bantamweight. I think he's the right test for Rinya. Rinya would be favored pretty heavily, but maybe not so heavily after not being able to finish Carlos Vera. So let's keep going. Let's see if he can go to 4-0 in the UFC. Then we can talk about maybe a top 35 guy at 135. But let's take it slow. Rinya is could be a guy who could be a top 10 guy, but I don't think he's close to that until 2025. I don't think we should even be talking about that yet.
What, did Rinya break? Rinya broke his hand?
He said he broke his hand, yeah.
Yeah, Danny Barlow broke his arm in the first round. Like, there's just a lot of crazy ass. Henry Cejudo definitely probably has like a broken forearm. Mackenzie Dern's face was a mess. Like, there were a lot of. You
said Whittaker earlier. Whittaker's face cannot be in great condition. Nor Volkanovski. I mean, well, he looked pretty good post fight, but I'd love to see the injury report after.
Yes. So I'm not gonna lie to the world right now. I'm friggin' tired. Like I'm on an hour's sleep in the last like day and a half right now. It's tough. So I was just gonna throw out Amanda Lemos versus Tatiana Suarez and just do that because that's so obvious. But I'm not doing that. I decided let's have some more fun. I'm gonna do something that's very rare on this show. I'm going to matchmake for a main card loser right now, and it's not probably any of the people you expect. I'm going to matchmake for Roman Kopylov right now because God bless the man.
Your boy.
God bless that man. Remember when everyone was jumping off the Kopylov train? Who was the guy who stood up for this man and said, don't jump off yet. Don't jump off yet. This guy's going to be fun.
Buried him.
So let's make him shine. Let's give him fun things to do against other fighters who also need fun things to do. Who in the blue hell is going to be upset about this matchup? Roman Kopylov versus Bruno if I had a good freaking googly moogly. You're welcome, world.
Take
You're
the
welcome.
under. Take the under.
I might take under a half a round in that.
Someone is throwing hands without regard for life. We got a lot of that. You could say the same, by the way. Any future matchups for Zhang Mingyang and also Brendan Ribeiro, by the way. I mean, these guys may never see a second round for a long time. They are just going to be going into smash and bash until someone drops, and hopefully collect bonuses and make a good living in the UFC as middleweights or light heavyweights. But in a positive way, I should say, in a positive way. So yeah, but there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun to be had, and there's definitely some guys on this undercard who, and also Kopylov, who are going to like plenty of fun fights ahead, plenty of highlights ahead, good or bad, plenty of highlights ahead.
God, that fight was so good. That fight was so good. All right, we have about 10 or 15 minutes left.
All right,
so
I'll skip the disclaimer this week. This week. Let me just do some quick. I had a poll at the beginning of the show, Mike. What's next for Ilia Topuria after UFC 298? Volkanovski rematch, Movsar, Connor, or other? Leave comment. Thankfully, Conor McGregor, 4th place, 12%. People don't even want this. They don't even want this. Nobody wants this except you. And then Volkanovski rematch at the top, 46%. So that's logical, I think. I don't know if people are saying what they think is going to happen, what they want to happen, but either way, pretty strong sentiment for a Volkanovski rematch. And guys, you're not wrong. That's very likely what will happen. And I just want to shout out one person, Mitchell Osterlin. I like to shout out my first timers, Mike. I'll read his picks real quick. Everyone else who sent in, sorry, we'll get to you guys another week. Mitchell, first timer. Topuria versus Ovloyev. If Volk doesn't move up to 155, give him a long break, 2 KOs, 4 months. Don't think Rodriguez versus Ortega winner deserves it. Sure. Whittaker versus Chimaev after DDP versus Izzy is booked. Gary versus Brady. I think we'll see a lot of that. Merab versus Cheeto O'Malley winner. Hernandez versus Chris Curtis. Rebook Lemos Suarez. DeLima Rosenstruck after he loses to Gaziev on March 2nd. Nakamura Houston rebooking Zhang and Guskov. Mike, imagine Zhang and Guskov. That will happen someday. I don't know when.
That fight is awesome.
They should be circling each other because they will fight each other.
No,
someday.
That's next. That's next. We have to do it right now.
Barlow and Adam Fugit, Oban Elliott, Gilbert Urbina, Maverick, and Casey O'Neill. And a random wildcard pick, Mike. Volk moves up to 155 after taking 8 months off minimum and fights Dustin Poirier after he loses to Benoit Saint-Denis.
Man, I kind of feel like Volk is knocked out in that fight too.
That goes through the decision. Like 5 rounder.
If Volk won and then moved up to fight Poirier, like I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
But man, that's a tough dude to get in there with after getting badly KO'd 2 fights in a row.
That could be a lot of red on Volkanovski's resume real quick. For a guy who had no red on his resume up until the first Volkanovski fight, that could be a lot of red.
I'll tell you what, I liked a lot of those picks. Boy, was there one fight that made me cringe a little bit.
Oh.
You keep Fluffy Hernandez away from Chris Curtis. No. Do not do that.
He specified it as a 5-round Apex main event.
No. I love me some Chris Curtis, but keep those two away from each other. Stylistically, that's a tough one. I still think Hernandez would make it fun, but come on, man. Like after that performance, this dude deserves a step up in competition. And Chris is a good fighter, but I mean, come on. Let's give him something in the rankings.
It could happen. This could be a crystal ball pick. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if that's the pick we want, but it could be the pick we get.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. All right, Mike. What do we got? Comments. Let's go. Comments. Right. Let's go. I got to tell people this
again. All right, we're opening it up to you guys. It's your wild card round. Again, you can clear the velvet rope. You can cut the line with the super chat feature. If you guys have questions about other things, we could do that as well. Barlow versus Semmelsberger. I mean, it's fine.
I like it. Danny Barlow is good. I like Danny Barlow.
The problem is I think Semmelsberger could probably win that fight because I mean we didn't see Danny Barlow wrestle at all because that's kind of the pedigree. Semmelsberger hurts people in the feet and then gets taken down and controlled for 12 minutes.
Sorry, Mike. We're not protecting Danny Barlow. You know, we got to give Danny Barlow tough fights. Let's go. It's tough division.
Yeah. Miranda Maverick versus Veronica Hardy. Geoff Neal versus the JDM Gilbert Burns loser.
Wow.
Kopylov versus RoboCop. Don't hate that.
No, like it.
Who did I put RoboCop in there with? Ikram Alaskarov. I put him in there.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Which I like that fight a lot. Ilia versus Volk 2. I mean, that's a popular
Yeah,
one. I think we'll see it. I don't want to see it right now. Gary versus Burns, regardless of the 299 outcome.
That'd be a huge fight for Gary to get. I can't picture it happen. There's a reason Gary did not call him out. I think he knows that is not the matchup for him right now. I would certainly pick Gilbert to win that fight. Maybe a little further down the road. Get some more seasoning for Ian Machado Garry and get a little more wear and tear on Gilbert before we try and make that fight happen.
Volk Ilia 2, Whittaker Strickland, Gary Covington, Merab, title fight, Hernandez, Paul Craig. Do there. Paul Craig's booked against Mr. Co-main event himself, Caio Borralho. Neal versus the Holland Page winner.
Yes.
Dern versus Godinez, Jean Jaroba loser. Luby's fighting Jean Jaroba? When? Really? When's that happening?
I think that's right. Let me check real quick. Also, are either
Luby's the right answer though? For
Luby,
McKenzie.
I am seeing March 30th, Mike. March 30th.
Oh, she is fighting.
Atlantic City, UFC Atlantic City.
Oh, cool. Okay. I forgot about that one.
Vierna and McKenzie have not. Vierna and McKenzie have fought, but it was a while ago. It was. You know what? You could.
It was a good fight too.
Yeah, you could run that one back. That's a good pick.
Yeah. Who was Vierna supposed to fight? Was she supposed to fight Tatiana?
Was Vierna supposed to fight Tatiana?
Yeah. Who's Vierna matched up with? That was like.
That's right. Last August. Yes. Correct.
Ilia versus Movsar will happen. Selfishly, for bragging rights purposes, I truly hope that's the fight that's made. Because if I could end the year in a world where I predicted Movsar Evloev and Arman Sarukian to be champions, and it happens, I'm never making predictions again because it will never get better.
You're on a hot streak with your predictions.
I'm on fire right now.
We should tell people at home we do an internal MMA fighting topology picks competition, and Mike has won 4 out of 4 times this year so far.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 UFC cards. My goodness.
I had a great betting night last night. Swept it until the main event. Hit a big parlay with Volk Topuria going over 1.5, just barely. Sweat that one out a little bit. Lost some Volk bets at the end, but man, I hit everything. I hit point spread bets. I hit everything. It was a great night. It's definitely my best betting night ever.
I see we have a super chat, but it is used on Dudu. Sadly, that's Dudu that you already called out.
Paul Craig versus Fluffy, but it's just due because it's super chat.
Oh, okay. Wow, man, we are really giving super chat privilege to people. My goodness, but yes.
I mean, look, it's
Paul Craig
it's VIP.
Paul
VIP.
Craig is okay.
Let's see what else we got. Volk rematch: Bobby Knuckles versus Strickland, Ian versus Colby, Fluffy versus Ikram. Dude, Fluffy versus Ikram's great, but too risky at this point. Too risky.
Yeah.
Merab next title shot, 299 winner.
We touched upon the Whittaker Strickland fight. That is a really, really, really good fight. Again, if it wasn't for the fact that I think you and I have already matchmade for Strickland and matchmade, we've done previous matchmaking shows, but that's a really logical fight for both guys. If you're Strickland and if you're the UFC, listen, if people don't need to go over, me being there at UFC 297 to see Strickland in person, that's a whole drama. That's a whole other thing. But I will say, I did see what an enormous following Sean Strickland has. He is a star with the UFC. They, to some degree, he's a star. They need to keep him in big matchups, and Robert Whittaker makes a lot of sense and is probably a winnable fight for Sean Strickland. I would, of course, pick Whittaker to win. I think he'd be favored, probably pretty strong, minus 180, almost minus 200. But Strickland can win that fight.
Yes, he can.
He's tricky. He's so tricky. Everyone says the first time you fight him, it is just crazy. DDP is the champion. DDP didn't kill Sean Strickland. That was a really hard fight, and he looked like he had a lot of problems figuring Strickland out. I think Whittaker would have some problems too. So, I don't know.
Dude, Strickland versus Hamzat is so compelling.
I just love that. It's just fun. But
it's so good because I think Strickland could win. I think Strickland stylistically could give Hamzat fits, and that's really interesting. Why did that just happen? I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but it's okay. So Gerard said Topuria Evloev, Volk versus Charles Oliveira, win or lose, which I'm cool with that. Holloway versus Oliveira is one I would love to see as well, depending on what happens at 300. Whittaker Strickland, Gary versus Burns JDM winner. Hernandez versus Elidze, sure.
Mike, how do you feel about if it does end up being? I don't think they would do Della Maddalena and Gary if if JDM beats Gilbert Burns, right? I am someone who's an advocate for throwing up and comers together. I always say don't protect contenders, just throw the contenders. I don't care about quote unquote killing off a contender. Guys have to fight. I would love it, but I don't think the UFC. I think they would avoid IMG versus JDM as long as possible.
Yeah,
right?
I think they'll try to hold off on that one
because both guys could be title challengers. So again, I wouldn't protect them, but the UFC probably would. Mike, do you see we have another super chat, also from Aquiles Jr.
Oh, shout out! Let me find it. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry.
No worries. People, get your super chats in there again.
We love it. Kills Brady or Wonderboy beats Gary.
I
don't know.
Sean Brady. A lot of people I saw saying, let's get Sean Brady in there with him, see how cocky this guy is. It's definitely a tough matchup. I think Gary can beat Wonderboy at this point, but I've said that before about other fighters who Wonderboy has like 50-45 or 49-46 or whatever. It's like, I don't know, could be or 29-28. I could be totally wrong.
Gary versus Shavkat. Let's see how good Ian really is. No more tiptoeing.
Oh, man. Come on,
dude.
guys.
Shavkat might.
Why?
Dude, at this point, Shavkat might be fighting Leon Edwards next. We don't know. No Ian Gary Bilal Muhammad suggestions. I'm kind of surprised because it feels like Bilal's not getting a title shot.
Mike,
it truly feels like he's not.
What was Dana saying that they'd offered Leon 3 fights or something for 3, and he said
they offered him 3 fights
for 300.
They offered him 3 fights.
And what are they saying? Leon said no, or what are they saying? I don't understand.
No, they're saying Leon said yes to all of them.
Oh,
they didn't mention names,
and they just didn't want him to headline 300. I'm confused.
Or they just didn't come to fruition because obviously, like as Ariel reported, Leon versus Hamzat was one of them, and Leon was probably like, "Hey," they were probably like, "Hey, Leon, how about you versus Hamzat?" And he was like, "Yes." And then they're like, "Hey, Leon, how about Shavkat?" And he said, "Yes." And then the third one is interesting because I would not be surprised. And I didn't hear Dana's whole presser. I saw like 5 seconds of it because after the watch party, I have to go through the whole watch party and timestamp them for you guys to make sure you can just find the moments as easy as possible. So that takes a lot of time. So I don't know if he was asked specifically about Bilal Muhammad, but something tells me that for some reason, Bilal was not one of those 3 names. I'm curious who the third name was. Something like I wonder, because this could be anything, right? Like nothing are like official offers. But do you think there's a world where they're like, hey, we're going to try to get George St. Pierre in here. Would you take that fight? And he just says yes. Like that counts as we offered him 3 names and he said yes to all of them. Like they could have said like Francis Ngannou. Like, hey, would you fight Francis? Sure, I'll fight Francis. Oh, there's number 4. Like you said yes to that too. Like that just adds to the list. Like these weren't official offers. But do you think Bilal Muhammad was one of the 3 names offered to Leon? Because I don't think he was for some reason. It's super weird.
I'm just now imagining a series of texts, just like I need to see the text. It's just like, hey, Leon, do you want to? Hey, would you want to fight Ngannou? LOL. And then like, and Leon is answering, huh? Question mark K, and like a funny GIF, and like, yep, that counts. Okay, and like, and there's more names, and just Leon going like K, I guess? Question mark, funny GIF. Like just a very casual exchange, and not realizing like, oh, this is them kind of doing business, and then Dana later showing up. Yeah, hey, I offer him all these fights. Trust me, we got the text for it. I need to see those messages. Hey, Dana, release those ones. You released those. You released those ones with Benoit Saint-Denis. Let's see some Leon text, please.
Can you imagine what Leon's like text thread looks like from the UFC?
Oh,
it's just like a million things, and then Dana like puts Leon over, and then you look at Bilal's, and like the only message he gets from the UFC is like, "What you doing?" at like 3:30 in the morning. He's become the booty call of the welterweight division. It's so like, how did we get here? It's so crazy.
Imagine.
I feel so bad for him. He's made so many mistakes along the way, but at this point, I feel so bad for Bilal Muhammad.
His nickname should be the booty call. That might get him a title shot faster than Remember the Name, which is quickly becoming the most ironic name in nickname in MMA history. Because they never remember his name when it comes to booking big fights. So
yeah, I think we're gonna have to change the nickname. Like, please call my name, or I don't know. Jesus, it's so weird. What the hell? Bilal considered the name. That's a good one.
Yeah. That's because maybe be a little less aggressive with it.
Yeah.
Guys, send in your pick. I'm seeing a lot of random comments. You guys, this is your chance. This is your chance. You are live. You are live on the YouTube.
You got 5 minutes.
You got 5 minutes.
Because I have to check out of the hotel.
Yeah, send in any. No, well, don't send any picks. I don't want to open those gates. But
Dana Bilal 3 a.m. Hey, big head. Oh my god. Let me ask you this: Is Bilal Muhammad gonna have to fight somebody else before he fights for the belt?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so friggin' wild, man.
I thought people know this. I was saying on shows, I wrote about it. I thought they were just going to have to default to Muhammad and Leon for the UFC 300 main event. People told me that's not going to happen. You guys were absolutely right. It clearly was not their number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5. Everything they were doing, humanly possible to not have Leon and Bilal headline 300. So maybe it doesn't matter if they go to England, right? Leon, or if they go to London, it doesn't matter who Leon fights, and then you can do the Bilal fight. But it does feel like they're going to make him fight again, which is so stupid. Bilal deserves a title shot,
100%. But I don't think he's going to get it.
Come on, booty call.
He's going to get it.
Let's go, booty call.
Man, they're going to make him fight freaking Shotgun. It's nuts. I mean. I don't know, man. What's going to headline 301 at this point? That's my big question, because I understand like Pantoja should fight on that card, but who's he going to fight? Moreno would make sense, but we've seen that fight 3 times already. Pantoja won them all. The last one was great, but Moreno's fighting Brandon Royval in a week. So like that would be the best option, is that Moreno just runs Royval super quickly and then turns around in 2 months. Otherwise, like, who is Pantoja going to fight?
What's Amir Albazi? Amir Albazi's booked, right? They gave him a fight.
No,
right?
he was supposed to fight Brandon Moreno in Mexico and got hurt.
Manel
Kape missed weight.
Canceled fight, missing weight. Yeah, that's a good option there. Look at my rankings right now. You got to go. You just throw Makayev into the fire? I don't think so. Tatsuro Taro is way too early.
Fighting March 2nd.
Man, call Tim Elliott. You know what? He deserves another title shot. It's time. Call Tim Elliott.
Oh my god. Who do you have? Who do you have Dern fighting next? You fought everyone in the strawweight division. Pretty much, she'll be having a rematch. So I touched on this earlier. I think it's Lupi Godinez, no matter what, right? Against Vera Jandarova.
Yeah, I like either of those. Yeah, you do Lupi or you do the Fiona rematch. So I think that's good. But we can talk a bit about Mackenzie, because gosh, she's tough as hell, but that striking is just all over the place, man. I don't know. And she has the crazy thing is she has the tools to be a good striker. She has athleticism and raw power. She knocked down Amanda Cooper a while ago. I think she got a knockdown of Limoges, right? Was that not a knockdown in the round 2?
Was it scored a knockdown?
I don't know. Let me go to UFCstats.com real quick. What's going on? Let me go to UFCstats.com real quick. I thought it was, because I do believe her knee and Limoges' knee touched the floor.
No, it wasn't scored a knockdown.
It is not scored a knockdown. Okay, no. I mean,
and they only gave Amanda Lemos 1 knockdown. I thought she clearly had 2 knockdowns in the second round.
Yeah. I guess they counted it all as 1 knockdown, because maybe Mackenzie never really properly got back up after getting her face broken. Super tough, but we got to get her somewhere. And wrestling. She needs to go just dedicated wrestling camp for, I don't know, 3 months or something, because the skills are there, man. I mean, and the durability is there, but she has taken a lot of damage these fights, and that window is closing real fast. So entertaining fighter. I hope she has a great long career, but she won't if she keeps taking damage like she did in that fight with Limoges. So I don't know.
I see someone saying Val Woodburn versus Leon Edwards.
I wish Val had made that call out even in defeat. Listen, we're in the year of the crazy call out, so screw it. Should have done it.
So a main interesting point: if Jailton Almeida goes out there and just runs over Curtis Blades, do you do Almeida versus Tom Aspinall in the main event of 301? That's quick turnarounds. 2 months.
I would be. I'm saying wait, because this is happening. Blades and Almeida is $299, right?
Yeah, so it'd be less than 2 months. But if it's quick, like if it's a quick, like he subs him in 90 seconds, then you could do it.
I would love that. I'm all on the Almeida train. The faster we get this guy to the heavyweight title, I'm all for it. So
that's a good one. But man, he's got a tough fight. Curtis Blades is it's a good one. It's a good one. All right, last call. What you got?
Get your picks in here, people. I'm scrolling back to see if we missed anything good that should be read.
I think we might be okay.
There's one that jumped out at me, but I can't find it now. It's gone. But yeah, I mean,
Are
overall,
we saying Boo or Bulal, AK?
I was saying Bulal, for the record. I was saying Bulal. Lopsided threw in Costa versus Strickland. Failed the moon. So yeah, listen, they're both coming off losses.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
God, that
you would have to assume
weird.
Hamzat's fighting in Saudi Arabia, right? Like if we were to guess, I think that's where he's going to fight, is on that Saudi card. So I think Costa's good, Whittaker's good, Strickland's good.
Costa and Strickland I think they'd really get along too. They'd find some.
I think they've trained together. I'm sure at Extreme Couture.
There you go.
When Hamzat comes to town, that's usually like where he gets his work in. Like when he fights in Vegas, that's how where he finishes his camp. So I'm sure those two got some rounds in together.
Hey, throw that in a pay-per-view. That's a made for pay-per-view fight right there. Costa versus Strickland.
Absolutely. All right. I think we have done the thing here.
I think we're good. Yeah. Great picks.
I think we are good.
Yeah. Everyone has sent in great picks, great stuff, great comments. Love it.
And just a pretty fun card last night. It was a pretty fun card last night. We will be back on this program next week, but normal show will be on the podcast network reacting to UFC Mexico City main event. Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. We have Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega in a 5-rounder. Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado. What a fight that's going to be. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Tercios. Yasmin Hadagi versus Sam Hughes. Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. Christian Quinones versus Hayoni Barcelos. Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonca. Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. Claudio Playas versus Fares Zayem. Luis Rodriguez versus Denis Bandar. Victor Altamirano versus Felipe Dos Santos. And Muhammad Naimov versus Eric Silva. That is UFC Mexico City. But don't forget, everybody, before that happens, the co-leader, PFL.
Oh, yes.
Back with PFL versus Bellator Champs card, which is just crumbling and dissolving as each day goes by. The two best, most compelling matchups from a stylistic perspective are off the card now. And yeah, for the low price of $50, you could watch whatever is left of that main card. So that's happening first. And then
I'm not sure how to watch it. I'm not sure how to watch it in Canada.
It's on DAZN.
It's on internationally. It's on DAZN. Okay, yeah, we have that here. All right, guys. So get in DAZN if you want to watch that this card, which is still has some intriguing matchups. Help the co-leader out.
I mean, AJ McKee versus Clay Collard's got a rule, so I'm cool with that. But
Mike, one last UFC note: if Brandon beats Brandon Moreno beats Brandon Royval, he gets the title shot, right? He fights Pantoja. We get to run it back with Pantoja one more time, right?
Sure, but if him and Royval go 5 rounds and beat the shit out of each other, like how's he going to turn around in 3 months to fight in Brazil?
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. Well, thank you all. To the world's most famous Apex for Jairzinho Rosenstrike versus Shamil Gadziev, and then it's UFC 299, and we're officially on the road to UFC 300. So thank you. Back next week after UFC Mexico City. For AK, I am Mike Heck. Always remember, don't take this stuff too seriously. MMA is supposed to be fun, and we'll see you next week for more fun on to the next on the podcast. Good night, everybody.